Hi, I'm Valerie Stephan, part of Bright's training team.
And I'm Tiffany Murphy, also a part of Bright's training team.
So today we're talking about one of our shared enthusiasms, tiny homes. So Tiffany, I know you're a fan of these too.
Yes, not just tiny homes, but the container homes, small apartments, the micro dwellings, little spaces essentially.
Well, if you've been watching HGTV or following the trending topics of minimalism and downsizing, you may already be familiar with sort of a pre pandemic big housing trend, which is going and moving away from sort of the carbon copy, supersized dwellings that were popular in earlier decades towards smaller square footage, more compact dwellings featuring space saving storage, custom elements, and a more economical sort of blueprint for the way people live.
There are tons of benefits for these smaller structures and homes. One of the bigger ones being the small impact on the environment in terms of building materials and footprint. So that's huge. But also the suggestion of just accompanying a simpler lifestyle. Not to mention the lighter hit on the pocketbook, which is huge. And then, of course, stretching the dollar. So you might be able to splurge for some of those fancier finishes when you're thinking about much smaller space than that standard square footage for a larger home.
Right. Now, tiny house may mean different things to different people, but for our purposes, we're talking about a home that's around, say, 600 square feet or smaller. Many of the tiny homes that you might see on programs like Tiny House Nation or similar might be mobile and constructed on a trailer. And those are a slightly different animal as they may be classified from the MLS's standpoint as a mobile home if they have a vehicle title. And depending on where you live, there might be restrictions as to where that property can be parked and for how long. Tiffany, you made a video with tips on searching for land that might help with that type of search, right?
Absolutely. And I'll throw the link up on this video so you can absolutely check that out if that's an area of interest for you. But what about finding and listing permanent structures in the MLS?
Glad you asked. There can be some challenges to establishing new tiny dwellings, so building something on your own based on sort of the local governance regarding home size minimums. Pre existing tiny homes and apartments can be listed in the MLS, and you can certainly find those that are already out there. Listing isn't too difficult, as, like with any listing, you'll want to enter all the pertinent details for the property, especially above ground square footage, as that's going to be one of the key fields for those who are searching for tiny homes. Um, the photos, photo captions, remarks are where you'll really want to think about key phrases and images that highlight some of the great features of a tiny home and make living in a smaller space possible.
So things like storage options, multifunctional spaces, those pocket or barn doors, built-ins with like benches with storage, stairs with drawers, things like that, Murphy beds.
Right, you're speaking my language. Particularly in remarks, you can use some of the phrases that are popular. Think things like tiny house movement, minimalism.
Yeah, and since some of the values of the movement are bespoke and handmade elements, talk about those custom features and of course the green aspects of the property.
Absolutely. While some might think searching a lower price range would be a way to find those properties, it's not always the case. After all, a recent property in Fishtown, an area in Philadelphia, netted over $200,000 for just about 600 square feet.
That's amazing. And that property was featured on Curbed, right?
Right. And it was listed in the MLS. I did a little searching in the Philadelphia area today and found quite a few small apartments, tiny houses. In an urban setting, it's more likely that you're going to be finding small apartments, maybe some row or townhouses primarily. When I was searching, I relied heavily on square footage and sort of keep in mind that, like with any other search criteria, we're reliant on what's been entered by the agent. So even if it's a required field, you're going to find some data that maybe you need to sift through a little bit. So I did find quite a few that had zero or a single digit listed in that above grade finished square footage, which is probably inaccurate. I'm going to guess if it's a zero or a single digit, but we expect some of this, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I did the same type of search, but moved a little bit further out into the rural counties of West Virginia and found those same inaccuracies with numbers. So that could be that they're just shells, maybe. But I did find some detached and single family options.
So it sounds like we were both pleasantly surprised to see what inventory is already out there. So many tiny possibilities in the MLS. And we hope that we've helped some of you with options for listing or buying tiny.
Yeah, whether it's a pre existing option or locating some land to buy your own creation, like those Amazon tiny house kits, there's definitely space in the MLS.
If you've enjoyed this conversation, give us a like and feel free to share this content.
And if you haven't had a chance yet, be sure to subscribe and hit the little bell so you never miss a conversation.
Thanks for watching.